Welcome to episode 275 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and we're on a special recording day on a Friday with schedule changes. And we got Chuck Joyner back on the show. How you doing, Chuck?
You would dare to ask me that after a pre-show? I'm fine, Dave. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Glad you're here.
I'm so glad I'm here.
This is going to be a good show.
Yeah.
And then Ben Roethig is here. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good. I feel like we just did this all before lunch.
Yes, we did do the Mac show a couple hours ago, so we're fresh in podcast number 2. Speaking of podcast number 2, there's Jeff Gamet. How you doing, Jeff?
Yeah, whatever. I'm doing great. I'm happy to get to spend more time with all three of you today. Yes,
it's going to be a lot of fun here. I got a full agenda here. A fair amount of news and a couple good stories here. Is Google's days numbered with default search? We'll find out, and many other things. But let's talk about the big elephant in the room right now. It's been talked about a bunch this week. Is T-Mobile. T-Mobile is going to be automatically upgrading users to more expensive plans, but there's an opt-out option. T-Mobile will be forcing customers on older smartphone plans to move to the newer, more expensive plans, according to the information that was found all the way out there on the internet. And T-Mobile did confirm this. The migration will be automatic, but customers can contact support to ask them to opt out of the migration. So these are some of the plans, like the Magenta plan, which I have, and they wanted to move everybody to this Go 5G plan and all the other ones. And I think this is a kind of a bit of a crazy thing. I was able to opt out very easily. All I had to do is go into the T-Mobile app, and I chatted with a customer service rep and said, I heard you guys are going to be doing this. And right away, the guy says, you want to opt out? And I'm like, yes, I do. So I typed in opt out and we're good. But I think the bad thing is not all of us, not unlike us, who are very savvy of this stuff, that there's going to be a lot of customers out there that are not going to know that this is happening. So I'm going to start with Chuck, because I know this was a big one for you. What do you think of all this?
Well, first of all, I'm not a T-Mobile customer. And, I think there was a better way to do this than the one they chose, but they chose this. If it's in the contract that you signed with T-Mobile, that they can change the terms of your plan, then it's on you for not paying attention to it. That said, this is kind of disappointing given the corporate image they try to project. And I just have to wonder how much blowback they're going to get. And of course, we'll probably never see how many users shifted over. There will be the usual uproar in social media, but we'll never see any official numbers.
Absolutely. Ben, what do you think? And you are a T-Mobile customer.
Well, my parents are. I'm currently on Mint, which is about to be a subsidiary of T-Mobile. But I feel sorry for their customer service and retail workers because they're going to be the ones who hit the real blowback on this. The vast majority of customers who are not as savvy as us, especially those who are older or lower income or more on a fixed income, are probably not going to know this is happening until it shows up on their bill.
Right. How about you, Jeff?
I have no opinion. Kidding.
I thought you might have an hypothesis.
Since when?
Just making sure you're paying
Jeff?
attention.
Who
Chuck.
are you?
Yeah. So not a hypothesis on this one, but definitely an observation. T-Mobile, they're within their contractual rights to change plans around. And the problem, though, is that they're doing this in a way that's going to leave a bad taste in customers' mouths. We are already seeing blowback because we're seeing news coverage and we're discussing it on podcasts. I think the next place we will see the blowback will be when they do their next couple quarterly earnings report calls, and they talk about churn. and I expect their churn numbers will be higher than they have been in compared to the previous couple quarters. And for the people that don't know what churn means, it's a term in the industry that talks about customer turnover. So if you're losing a lot of customers, you're having a higher churn.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't see T-Mobile losing too many customers, in my opinion. I just think they're still a great carrier in other ways. I mean, for the most part, get good coverage. I mean, I moved from AT&T to them, about 6 years ago now, and I'm pretty pleased with the performance I've had as I've traveled around the country, as well as my area. We got very good coverage, so I don't see this being a big deal. Other than, like I also I'll mention too, because that I was really angered of the fact that they were making us take our credit cards off to pay the bill, and then because I had my Apple Card on there using Apple Pay, so I got 2% on it. To have to put a checking account as a direct way to pay for it, or else I lose my $50 discount on all the lines I have in my account. So
see, that was a lame move too.
It really was. So like kind of a double whammy here in the last couple months here with T-Mobile. So I think there's some.
Now I have a hypothesis.
Making some bad decisions. All right, go ahead.
my hypothesis is that the revenue that T-Mobile has been projecting for themselves, that's not what they're hitting. And so they're taking measures to boost revenue. One of those is take away the ability to let you use a credit card. So that takes away credit card transaction fees for them. And then the other
big company. It's a big company. Come on, give me a break.
I agree completely. However, I can see when you're looking at all of this in an Excel spreadsheet, and they get to negotiate their rates because they're that big. But even if it's like 0.5% on a transaction, that adds up. But then changing how much they're charging for plans. So doing a price increase, but not calling it a price increase, but it's a price increase. Right. They're trying to increase revenue without having to try and drive in more customers. So yeah, they're just squeezing you for pennies.
Yeah. Oh well. We'll see how things go. I certainly hope people are listening here. You are a T-Mobile customer. Do what I just did. Go in the chat in the app and just opt out.
And one other thing for us, why those credit card fees are like a couple pennies. The bigger you are, the more money that is.
Yeah, I see it.
And there's one other thing too to keep in mind, that the current interest rates have completely upset lots of industries. I mean, because now, where before it was literally pennies that these companies would be making, now they can be getting 3%, 4%, 5% on their money. So they're looking for as much as they can get to drop into that bucket to generate that income. So, that factors in, and I kind of think it factors into the credit card thing. I also think it factors into some of the shorter terms for spreading out your phone for allegedly zero interest payments, because that's money they aren't getting. You're holding on so you can generate interest with it, opposed to them getting it and let.
Truck froze. Oh, the T-Mobile opinion cops found him.
Yeah, well, it's a good point here to move on to the next story. And it was a shame what they have him here for this one. I just wanted to make mention. Star Trek Prodigy has found a new home since Paramount Plus had canceled them, and it's going to be on Netflix, which is kind of exciting. I know Star Trek hasn't been on Netflix in the U.S. anyway for a long time, so this is a great way to get this back on. I know you guys are the Star Trek Prodigy fans, and they're going to be the second season, which is currently in production, is going to debut on Netflix in 2024. So that's pretty exciting. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm really glad that they found another network to pick this up. The whole way it was done originally was, I guess, kind of like an experiment, because it was a partnership between Paramount and Nickelodeon.
Well, Nickelodeon is owned by Paramount.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. Well, screw those guys. Don't take away a good show like that. Anyhow, I'm glad that Prodigy has a new place, and we'll get to see season 2. I expect there won't be a season 3, because that's the Netflix way.
But
Unless
it's popular enough.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even still, Netflix, their numbers, their trends after season 2, the numbers drop off enough that they don't typically want to do season 2s. But I think this is also a great way for the showrunners to thumb their nose at Paramount, because Prodigy was a really good show. Well, I guess I can say is, because we get season 2.
Yep. Welcome back, Chuck. I know you had a bit of technical difficulty there. And we were talking about Star Trek Prodigy is now going to be back on Netflix. So I want your thoughts on that, because that was announced this week that they're going to be the second season is being recorded now, and they're going to have it in 2024.
I was extremely happy to see this. Prodigy is one of the best things to happen to the franchise in a long time, especially from the animated side. And editorial side note: if you think this is just a kid's show, then you're missing out, because it really, yes, the characters are supposed to be kids, but it is just a very, very well done story, animation, the whole thing.
Yep.
And I may respectfully disagree with Jeff just a little bit, because this is not necessarily a Netflix show. It's something that Netflix has purchased. So whether they could continue to shop it, obviously we don't know what the terms are of it going to Netflix. Still baffles me that Paramount dropped the ball on this one, but they did. Yeah. So, but bottom line is, it's going to be great to see, because if you've seen the season 2 trailer,
yes.
it is great. It really does whet your appetite for it. So go check it out.
Anything to add, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't one of the best kids Star Treks. This is one of the best Star Treks, and towards the end there, it actually got pretty damn dark.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to think going into the show. It completely won me over. It won over a lot of people, and I think the fact that Paramount's production side felt good enough that the show would be picked up to continue to finish it. Why the Paramount Plus team decided to drop it tells you everything that they need to know about this show. It was going to be picked up by someone else.
It'd be fascinating to know the contract, because you think of the merchandising rights to this, especially with the target audience being kids. I mean, there's so many aspects to this that it just feels like it's almost unexplainable why Paramount would do this.
Yeah,
it is.
I have a hypothesis, and I think it involves a crappy spreadsheet where they looked at the numbers that they were getting and compared that to what a write-off would be, and the write-off number was higher. And so they pulled a Warner Brothers and took projects that were really close to being finished, and just dumped them to take the write-off or insurance money.
Then that person forgot they were dealing with Star Trek, and the complete and utter backlash it would unfold.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next story. Apple has explained why the iPhone 12 was always safe to use in France. iOS 17.1 is going to address a non-standard test that triggered a non-issue. To recap on this, this is the story just because this story happened a couple weeks prior to this. The French they had thought it was concluded, but the French authorities had determined that the iPhone 12 no longer passed radiation exposure testing and limits on the day Apple discontinued it and unveiled the iPhone 15. Apple downplayed it and they acknowledged it that it would work. It would work, and with regulators to remedy the situation. So what Apple has a summary here. What the deal was here: iOS 17.1 will include an update for the iPhone 12 users in France to accommodate this specific test protocol that requires reduced power when off body on a static surface. iPhone 12 will no longer increase the allowed power when the off-body state's detected, such as while it's sitting on a table. As such, in coverage areas that the cellular signal is low, this change in antenna transmit power may result in slightly lower cellular performance in certain off-body cases. So the French were being a little particular with this. So I guess rightfully so. What do you think, Ben, on this?
Well, I haven't turned into a Lee.
You have a 12, so
yes. I think this is completely overblown by the French government.
Yeah,
but it's they can do what they want within their own borders. I'm very thankful this is only being done in France.
Yeah, agreed. How about you, Chuck?
I have a lot of affection for French culture, but I can't figure out what happened to it because it seems like France has been at the center of a number of different tech controversies right now. Not the EU, but France. And this is just another one of those that, they, according to what the stories I've read, the 12 passed all of its radiation testing and including things that France had said it would accept. And then 2.5 years later, they pop up with this.
Yeah.
And then Apple tweaks it as, the software, which almost felt like, okay, we're just tweaking it to say something different as opposed to doing anything different, if I understood it. But at the end of the day, fine. I mean, if that satisfies them. But I keep wondering what's going on in France right now.
Good question. Don't know. What about you, Jeff?
Well, if a government is going to have regulations in place to protect us, I would prefer that that they go a little bit overboard for protection as opposed to not far enough. That said, if this was a real issue, if this was an issue that was causing a serious problem for users, this is something that would have come up before now, I think, because it's not like France is the only country that has equipment to test the energy and radiation output of any device. So if there was a real health risk or a potential for a real health risk based on the output of the iPhone 12, we would have known about it already, because there are people out there that look at all products hoping to find a problem that they can capitalize on.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I guess we don't have to worry about that here in the United States. Last story this week: Best Buy may be ending DVD and Blu-ray sales early next year in 2024. The fight to keep DVD sales going is taking another hit. Best Buy is allegedly ending its physical media sales. That means Blu-ray, DVD, and 4K Ultra HD in-store and online. Multiple sources claim that the move is going to occur in 2024, early, as soon as maybe the first quarter. Interesting how this is timed, since Netflix just ended its 25-year DVD delivery service earlier last month, as we record here. So if Best Buy exits the market, this is only going to leave very limited options in the United States. Walmart, which has 45% share in the market, and Target still offers the discs in their physical stores. Well, Redbox has over 29,000 rental kiosks. So Amazon actually stands to be a major player on the online because Paramount just recently released all their Blu-ray and 4K exclusive titles to there instead of Best Buy. So maybe that kind of triggered it, seeing that some of the big distribution sites are not looking to go to Best Buy anymore. But is the DVD dead? I mean, what do you think, Jeff, on this?
I think for a lot of people, the DVD is dead. However, I like having the DVD and the Blu-ray disc options because right now, a large portion of my movie library, like so many other people's, is all digital.
Right.
What happens if the company that is that I have bought a license for that content? What if they lose their license to be able to distribute it? Then I lose the content. Or what if that company goes out of business? Then is another company going to honor that license for me so I can continue to watch it? Maybe, maybe not. And anyhow, I see value in having the physical medium, and I hate to see the options dwindling. My hypothesis is that since Netflix didn't need to run over to Best Buy to buy extra discs to meet demand, there was no reason to carry them anymore.
Redbox did that too. They still do, or had. What do you think, Chuck?
I think this is, like you said, is really interesting, given the Netflix move. I do have to wonder at times what kind of profit they're making on the physical discs, because unfortunately the price, unless you go to the bargain bin at Walmart, the price they're asking for some of these things seems more than a little prohibitive. If you look at, assuming that you can stream it, and Jeff brings up the perfect point, but assuming that something continues to be streamable, you can buy a month's worth of Netflix, watch one movie, and still, you've still gotten your money's worth. I mean, you still have money left over, and you also have a month of Netflix. So the only thing, there's only one aspect to this that so far right now, until we see more about what 5G delivers, is the ultra high definition Blu-ray, 4K super deluxe, put all the acronyms behind it that you want. That's where, if for those folks who are looking for the best quality, they're the absolute best quality, they may be the ones that lose out, or that end up paying ridiculously higher prices to get them in limited release. So, yep. But I go into Best Buy, and honestly, I can't remember the last time I bought a DVD or a Blu-ray disc. In fact, yeah, put it in terms of years ago, when finally a show that I enjoyed as a kid would only come out on DVD, and I purchased that. But beyond that, it's the big trick is going to be negotiating the contracts to make sure that all of these things continue to be streamable, and therefore there's an incentive of some kind to keep them online and monetize them. So.
That brings up another point. Sorry, I'm totally jumping in the middle. So much of this content is available electronic only. That increases the likelihood that at some point it will just simply be lost forever. Even if it's just a DVD in someone's closet, the likelihood that things that are lost can be found again increases.
I'm going to take this from Best Buy's angle. From a retail store, a not insignificant amount of their retail square footage is physical media. If that physical media is not having a good ROI, I don't blame them from a business model. They can get more room for things that do have that, do bring in more profit.
Yeah, No, that makes sense. Makes total sense.
Dave, do you mind if I jump back in with something?
Please do.
Because this sort of crosses over between this story and the last one with Star Trek, or one before that. I just asked Jeff in the chat. He was not the one. I think it was Patrice that recommended a show called The Nevers
I
that
love
was
that
on
one.
HBO. And so I finally, literally months later, I'm getting around to watching it. And I discovered that there is a season 1, part 1 of 6 episodes, season 2, which never was broadcast. And now so someone had the intelligence, I guess, to take the last half of the season, and I think it's been put on Tubi, Tubi, I think it is.
It's on Tubi, but it's only on Tubi channels, not it and the other stuff that Warner Brothers Discovery jettisoned, including the excellent Westworld, is not available video on demand.
Okay, you have to go to those channels and watch it, and you got to watch commercials too.
Okay, so but that's one of the prices we pay. And so, I feel like there's this big jumble going on of shows getting canceled, trying to continue on, getting redistributed. In this case, I think this folds into Jeff's theory about things being canceled to take the loss. That, okay, it's there, people want to see it, so we'll find another way to monetize it, and I don't know how you monetize it and still take the loss, but I'm sure that there's an accountant who can explain it to me. But at the end of the day, it's good, but you really have to pay attention to what you're watching, what you invest your time in, and then what might happen to it or where it might go. So and Blu-ray and DVD has been one place that some of this stuff could go. So will that be lost completely, or will the prices just go up and the runs for Blu-rays and DVDs go down?
Yep.
Yeah, I can explain the getting a tax write-off and still being able to sell it. Technically, even though they're within the same entity, HBO, or now just Max, and the HBO television studios are separate entities within that company. So Max is taking a write-off of distribution. Why the studio or the development studio is able to then resell it.
Yep.
It's a pretty good gig if you can get it.
Yeah,
sure is.
So they get my tax money and get to sell it.
This is why I didn't want to become an accountant.
I think this is why we should start our own production and distribution company and hire an accountant.
Let's go ahead and move on. We're going to move on to the topics this week. Beta iOS 17, iPad OS 17.1. Beta 3 was released this week. Nothing really notable other than we've been talking about. AirDrop transfers can be finished over the internet, and a number of other features are on there. So, I don't, Ben, you've seen anything you're running beta?
I haven't, but then again, I don't have an iPhone 15 Pro with the action button.
Yep. Nope. I'm not running it, but what's going to happen with the action button? I got that article here. Is the 17.1 is going to prevent action button from actually activating the camera from within your pocket. You don't want to be taking pictures of your pocket, right? So that's going to fix that in the action button, which is a good thing. As we record this today, actually, this article came out about an hour or two ago. There was a French site. Look at the French again added here. That French regular group had leaked the release date of 17.1, which is going to be October 24th. So we're about a little less than 10 days away from that. So that's going to be out anyway. So you'll be starting to see some of these features when it comes to that. The one thing, as always, like we say, don't put beta on any of your production devices. This might be a good idea not to. There's been an update that you got to make sure that your update this to beta 3 because your wallet app might crash. So that might be a problem. So it's definitely going to be an interesting thing here. So Watch OS 10.1 is out. Again, the double pinch to scroll is enabled on that. As well as tvOS 17.1. One of the notable things on tvOS is now it's got enhanced dialogue feature. It's going to expand. Actually, it was originally working with the second gen HomePod only, not even the HomePod Minis, but now they're going to expand this feature to the original HomePod and the HomePod Minis. What this kind of gives you enhanced dialogue, which makes it easier for you to hear the dialogue in TV shows and movies by separating the dialogue from the background noise and bringing it forward to the center of the channel, meaning users will get more clearly hear what's being said over the effects action in music in a movie or TV show. So this is kind of cool, actually, because there's times where you have trouble hearing this stuff, and then you end up I might want to just put on the closed captioning so I can just see what they're saying. Well, you might not need to do that with this. But the cool thing is that Apple's still realizing that the original HomePods are still a valid product, because there's a lot of them. A lot of people out there still have them, including me. And I have no reason why to upgrade these two I have here. And so this is going to be a good new feature in here. I think. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I've tried to turn it on, but I haven't quite been able to figure that out yet.
Yeah.
I have a question about it. Because I haven't been following it that closely since I've had no cause to upgrade to a 4K Apple TV.
Right.
The enhanced dialogue feature, am I correct in assuming that it only works when you're using HomePods or HomePod Minis as speakers? And okay, right. So me with a nice audio system, I can't take advantage of this.
No, it's a machine learning inside the HomePod.
Okay,
in the HomePod, yeah.
Okay,
so
that said, though, it can make a difference. And then I'm glad to see Apple supporting the whole HomePod family and not trying to differentiate, which features. I mean, obviously, at some point there are going to be hardware limitations come into play, but for the most part, if it can be done with software, they're not making the minis the stepchild or the legacy HomePods the stepchild. They're trying to keep everything in parity. So good for you, Apple.
Yep. Mm-hmm. One good thing comes out of beta, right, Chuck?
Yeah, well, the fact that I even said that is just pretty impressive.
I know, it was.
I'm kind of feeling like maybe you've been to a positive thinking seminar or something, because I mean that was really uplifting.
Yep, I've been uplifted.
I'll briefly mention that Apple did release new firmware for the AirPods Pro 2. It's just a new firmware it looks like just a minor version update. You never know. They never provide what details they did to refresh the firmware, but just make sure that it is updated. It does it automatically. You won't be able to really initiate yourself, but you can go in, connect your AirPods to your iOS device, open to the settings app, go into general, go into about, and then tap AirPods, and it'll just verify what the version is. It usually will update just the minute that you connect it to your iPhone. So that is that. So let's move on to the next topic here, and I think this will be kind of some lively conversation here. As many of us know, that the Apple does pay, Google does pay Apple over $20 billion a year to be the default search engine on any iOS and iPadOS device. Right now, Google is currently embroiled in a big antitrust case that was brought on by the Department of Justice over the company's alleged abuse of the market dominance. As part of the trial, Apple executives have been called as witnesses to question about what was really said to Google, that they were paying $15 billion annually to remain the default search engine. So this is, again, Chuck's favorite thing, lawsuits that are happening here. But I'd be curious to see where this goes. If Google does lose this, Apple may lose that $20 billion in revenue they're getting from Google. I'll start with you, Chuck.
Oh yeah, you would, Dave.
I know.
Okay, so the first thing, based on this article, let's see. I want to make sure I call the correct name. Financial advisor Bernstein, suggests that Apple is paying as much as 18 to 20. So this is not an official number yet. That's the first thing. If that ever comes up in discovery, I would be surprised, and it'll be very interesting to see. So that's the first thing. So the second thing is that, and look, we are all critical of Apple, Google, Microsoft here on the shows we do together. Mm-hmm. But let's face it, Google, however they got there, they deliver the best product, the best search product, or at least the most widely recognized, widely understood, widely used one. So for anybody to come in and say you're not allowed to use this in your system, and that would include Microsoft, that includes Apple and iOS devices. I mean, that just at some point, it just feels like we're trying to pull everything down to the lowest common denominator, or we're listening to people who whine about it and say, I can't compete because they're just too big. They're big for a reason. And I'm not suggesting that reason has always been as above board as maybe it would be nice that it were, but it's still there. And so for you to penalize me as an Apple user, because Apple decides that they want to put Google as the number one search engine, that doesn't feel right. I mean, it makes me want to spite somebody and say, if you force Apple or anybody else to put a search engine choice in, then I'm going to pick Google. But frankly, I'm not going to do it out of spite. I'm going to do it because it may be the best search engine out there. Now, whether I have that as my default search engine or not, that's another discussion. But
sure,
and by the way, you still do have a choice. If you don't want to use Google, you can go in and change it to.
I'm not.
You can go into DuckDuckGo, Bing, Opera. You can put any of those in as your default search engine, no problem. So, what is the big deal here?
This is honestly, I mean, Apple has to have something in there because they do not have their own search engine. I mean, granted, if this were that money were to go away, that could possibly change. But honestly, I found it when I started becoming uncomfortable with what Google was doing, it took me next to zero time to switch to DuckDuckGo. Yeah. It's literally, it's easier to switch search engines than it is browsers on Windows.
Yep. How about you, Jeff?
Okay. Keep in mind, Apple is not on trial here.
Right.
And that's the important thing to remember. Even though Apple is being called as a witness, there's a big difference between being a witness and being accused of doing something. Okay. So the antitrust element here, based on what I have read, which admittedly is not very much, is the fact that Google is big enough that they can just outbid everyone to block anyone else from having a chance to compete. So they're just buying the market. Now, on one hand, that's how capitalism works. On the other hand, if you are abusing your position as a monopoly, because there's nothing wrong with being a monopoly, it's abusing your position. And if paying Apple $15, $18, $20 billion a year is proven to be an abuse of that position, okay, now we have a problem. It doesn't mean that Google can't still be the default search engine. And like all of you have said, you can choose what search engine you want on your iPhone or your Mac or whatever. So Apple is clearly not colluding in a monopolistic abuse here. So it will be interesting to see what does happen. And my guess is that if Google is barred from doing this, then it's going to be like throwing chum into a hungry shark tank. And we're going to see this kind of money being spent anyhow, because everyone will now suddenly be fighting to get that top position as the default search engine on the iPhone. And we'll still be right where we are.
Yep.
So if Google was if this transaction was no longer allowed, what if Apple said, okay, we're going to make 3 default choices? Can they charge for those choices? Could they charge Google to be among the choices? Could they charge Bing to be the second choice? Could they charge, let's just say, DuckDuckGo to be the third? Could they say, okay, these are the places on our roster, and then number 4 is going to be an open slot where you can type in anything you want? But sort of like some of the remotes that you get from Comcast or Amazon that have the Netflix button, or the
Right.
I'm not sure if it has Spotify button, but the Netflix one I know is there. So would that be prohibited? Would that be an abuse of anything?
Well, that would be completely independent of this, because that would be an action Apple is taking as opposed to an action Google is taking. And because the scope of this case is Google, the court isn't going to be in a position to order Apple to conduct their business in a specific way in regards to default search engines. All they can do is regulate in some way how Google is buying their way into being a default choice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That said, they would be able to bar Google from paying anyone to use their search engine,
which would be interesting, because then they become the default search because they're the one no one has to pay for.
Yeah.
So,
which basically nothing then would change, and Google would have higher profits, while Apple has less.
But Ben, if that ruling came down, then how is that the Google is restricted, but Bing, DuckDuckGo, Brave, does that mean they could pay to be the top search engine or the default search engine?
Yeah,
sure.
Then how is that fair? If Google can't charge and Bing can, what?
Yeah, I mean, just look at the Apple antitrust case with the iBook store. Basically, the way they did it, and the way Apple could no longer do business, it effectively turned the Kindle store into a monopoly.
Chuck, here's a way that I could see the courts thinking that they'll make this work in a fair way, which would be to put a monitor into Google, much in the way they put one into Apple. And this monitor then audits every single transaction that would fall under the scope of monopolistic practices based on this trial. And so that that monitor would then green light or red light, whatever the transactions are, and regulate how Google competes in that sense. The end result will be just what Ben described, which is the courts will make someone else the de facto monopoly, even though that's not their intent.
Yeah. Or Google will just continue to be the monopoly, despite that.
At a lower price point.
Yeah, because they're the monopoly on Windows, and Microsoft makes it pretty damn hard to change from Bing. or Edge for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben, you made an interesting point the other night about this, that Google pays Apple whatever they pay it, however many dollar signs with a B in front of it. But they pay that in spite of the fact that they are the default search engine on Android. And so, and by the way, Bing is the default search engine on Windows.
Mm-hmm.
So, aren't those two companies leveraging their position on their platforms? And Apple, since
Yes,
Apple
they
doesn't
are.
have one, Apple's going out looking for the best, most popular search engine, the thing that everyone wants or uses. And I realize everyone is, characterization that probably I shouldn't make, but the vast
for
majority of
practical
people.
purposes, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now you're going to prohibit them from being the default search engine, even though the other platforms are not giving equal time to each other or to other search engines.
Yeah, why this makes zero sense for consumer choice.
Yeah. And I mean, this is where I start to get
Yes.
worried about judges and especially non-technical juries making decisions on this stuff when they don't fully appreciate the implications.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the implications is being telegraphed by Apple. So in the article that Dave picked for this, it has a quote from testimony from Eddie Q. So during the trial, where he said, "We make Google be the default search engine because we've always thought it was the best." Okay. Apple doesn't say things offhand, especially not under oath. And so what Apple is saying here is, look, we don't care what cap you put on the amount that Google is going to give us or how much money Google is going to give us. We're still going to have Google as the first choice for your default search engine. That could also be a very tactical move, like this money is not a monopolistic abuse. So just let this go because we're going to do what we're going to do, and it's not because of any sort of monopolistic pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So keep giving us $20 billion.
Yeah, why not? All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here. The digital IDs. Why has this been such a slow process to get these states on board to get them their driver's license so far? Apple announced these plans back in 2021 for so you can basically use the digital pass, which is your ID and your driver's license. So far, only 4 states have actually implemented wallet IDs that goes in the Apple Wallet, which is Arizona, Colorado, Maryland, and Georgia. And Apple did say back in 2021 that other states like Connecticut, Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, and Oklahoma and Utah were also committed to support the feature. But for now we're in 2023, and there's still nobody really with solutions. There's only 4 airports in the U.S. that actually supports wallet IDs at the airports, and that's Baltimore, Phoenix, Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., and Denver. So with only 4 states so far, you do have other states. I won't go through the whole list here that have the digital ID apps, which is a separate ID and a separate app. And while all these states are taking years to get their technology in line to do this, you still are limited. California, notably being one of the larger states, has a beta pilot right now, or has a pilot program where you can download their app and start using you're putting your digital license in that app. So I'm curious to know where you think here. We have a long list here also of pilot airports that are going through, and there's quite a number, including Dallas and Vegas and others across the U.S. But why is this taking so long? Do you have any thoughts on this, Jeff? Why you have it because you're in Colorado, so
And I set it up as soon as I could. There are multiple things at play here. At the top of the list is the government. And I'm using the government to cover all levels of government. Governments move slowly. and they're slow to adopt new technologies. Also, it takes a lot of money to adopt these new technologies. So that's a thing. Now, in Colorado, I set it up and I'm like, yeah, this is great. I can start using this. And then I was reading everything that goes along with it. Okay, so once the state supports it, now you need to have all of the other jurisdictions. So that would be like counties and municipalities. So in Colorado, I believe there are 5 cities that support this. So that means for practical purposes, I can't use my digital ID in the state, like if I need to show an ID to a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets confusing because state patrol, Colorado doesn't have state police. We have state patrol. They can accept this as a valid ID. But do they have the readers available across the state for all state troopers? I don't know. So realistically, I can't use my digital ID for identification with law enforcement. The state also says, but all the businesses that require ID for purchases, like for instance, if I go into a liquor store, I'm able to use my digital ID there, except none of them will accept that because they don't understand what this is and they want to see a physical ID. So now I've lost the use of this basically everywhere across the state. Last time I flew, a few months ago, I decided I'm flying out of Denver International Airport. Let's use the digital ID. And I get to the TSA checkpoint and the guy's like, nope. And I said, but this is one of the handful of airports in the United States that accepts this. And he says, we do not accept digital IDs, period. And so I had to put my phone away and pull out my physical ID and show him that. And I asked him, I'm like, so what am I misunderstanding? Because TSA lists the airports that accept this, and Denver is one of those. And he's like, we do not accept digital ID, period. I'm like, okay, whatever. So there, in addition to the government side of this problem, there's the whole side of everyone that's supposed to be able to accept the ID not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I expect that adoption of digital IDs is going to be an insanely slow thing. And this idea that we won't have to carry that physical ID around anymore. 10 years from now, we're still carrying that physical ID around. And we'll still be complaining that we have digital IDs that we just can't really use anywhere.
Yep. Did you have thoughts, Ben?
Where do I begin? I mean, this is let's see, how am I supposed to word this? It's a combination of practical matters and partisan priorities.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm not seeing the governments do a whole lot of governing and doing a whole lot of positioning instead.
Yeah.
This is something that probably should be on the top of the list, but for various reasons, it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's not happening in Illinois where I live. And
yeah, I mean,
there hasn't even been any discussion about it. So,
and literally, I covered the test pilot of digital IDs in Iowa 10 years ago for GeekBeat.
I remember when that was a thing, and I thought that was really cool.
Yep. So we'll see where it goes. It's just unfortunate, in this day and age with digital technologies that we can't have a simple thing like a driver's license in our digital wallet and be able to have that as an acceptable means of identification. But
Dave,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, two things. First of all, I want to know right after Jeff questioned the TSA agent and he said, "We don't accept," then did they shuffle you off for a cavity search?
Would you like the photos?
No. The fact that there could be photos is disturbing. But the other thing, and I'm not being flip about this, a few years ago, we had a little thing called the pandemic, and we couldn't get the states to agree on a single app to help us out with that. Mm-hmm. Everybody had an agenda. So why do you think they would, for something as simple as ID, where I can hear it now? Well, we've got a perfectly good system right now. We have a driver's license, that's all. So I wish Jeff's predictions were wrong or Ben's predictions were wrong, but I don't think they are.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on and move on. I wanted to talk a little bit about some news with CarPlay. There has been some iPhone 15 users that have not been able to connect with their USB-C cable, since that, of course, changed on the 15, because of possibilities with the issues of the actual cable in itself. A number of people in this article have actually reported back saying that they had the same problems with the different cables, and they're using good cables like Belkin and others. That you're not buying these cheap cables. And some, I'll emphasize, some iPhone 15 users were having a problem with it. Luckily, I have one of the Wi-Fi devices in my car that works pretty well. I mean, it can be spotty at times. I've reviewed it before, but it is nice to have the wireless capability. Mm-hmm. I'm currently renting a car right now, and it was beautiful. The wireless is built into the car, so I was able to just go right in, and of course, this car has a nice big display on it, so just be aware of the issues that are happening with the USB-C cable, because a lot of cars are older. They have USB-A connections. Technologies might be conflicting here. And it's definitely going to be something that needs to be looked at if that's the case, and you'd hope these car manufacturers should do something. Did you have something to add on that, Ben?
Yeah, I honestly, connecting to CarPlay using any kind of cable has been always iffy at best.
Yeah, that's why I got the Wi-Fi adapter.
Yeah,
so
yeah, because I have problems connecting to it with supposedly MFI Lightning to USB cables,
certified cables, right?
Yeah.
So, again, these are sporadic reports. It's not everybody who has iPhone 15 is having this issue, but it is unfortunate it's happening. But it's notable as far as those couple of issues of CarPlay. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to add on that?
Just that it seems interesting that we're having this discussion, because unfortunately, fortunately, my experience has not been Ben's. I've plugged in and had solid connections every time with no trouble. I've had trouble with the Wi-Fi adapters, Dave. I've tried several of them.
No, yeah,
and there's always
there are troubles.
There's a challenge. But the other thing, though, I think is interesting is we're having this discussion in relation to the iPhone 15 when there's that issue of certain charging pads in some of the higher end vehicles causing trouble. And so, I have to start. Well, what's the common factor here? Well, the common factor is the iPhone 15, but also the cars. So
cars are dated.
Yeah. Which one is it? Is it?
Yeah.
Is it the CarPlay unit or the CarPlay or the software in the head unit that you're connecting to, or is it the iPhone itself?
Yeah. It could be all of the above.
If you were going to place a bet, where would you bet, though?
Yeah,
I'd put it in the head unit most likely.
Yeah,
the car. Unit. I'd say the car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, a couple of things I wanted to mention. This was interesting. There is a project that brings CarPlay to Tesla. It gets a major boost with improved performance on the hardware bundle. Of course, while Tesla, as we well know, that they have refused to adopt CarPlay over the years, there's a thriving community of Tesla owners that have been taking the matters in their own hands by leading a project called Tesla Android, which is an open source operating system that brings CarPlay to a slew of other features to Tesla cars. I found this to be an interesting thing to see. This is a possibility, it's still, to me, this is a little bit overreach. It's you got you're really trying to use technology. It really wasn't designed for it. Hard to say if it's going to be efficient or not. And I think these are going to be more for enthusiasts than anything else to try to get this adopted. So I just wanted to mention that somebody's trying, but we know how Elon is with Tesla. So that I don't see this being something that's going to be a thing anytime soon. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? All right. Lastly, I wanted to talk.
Even care at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Lastly, I want to talk. I mean, I always like talking about CarPlay apps that are available from the iPhone. Again, like I said, I've been renting a car here, and it's interesting to see how I got to have a different experience of how it interfaces, since it's a different experience in this car. The manufacturer has its own button that you actually can tap that puts it into the CarPlay menu, and you just tap it and it brings you into their menuing system that's in the car. So it is kind of cool that to see the manufacturers are doing a good job of interfacing with this. So we know most of the apps that are available, your phone, of course, and maps and music, all that stuff, and then a lot of audiobooks and reading. Chuck, you just recommended Elon Musk's book, and so Audible's on there, and then many of the other books in Libby, which is the library system, and so you have a lot of those. And then, of course, all of us are doing meetings in our car, right? So you got Microsoft Teams, as we all love, and then Zoom, among others, and even WebEx has their apps that are readily available in the car, so you can do that. If you have an EV, you have a lot of apps there that can for charging and parking. Spot Hero is very popular with that. Interestingly enough, there's 3 food apps total: Domino's Pizza, Dunkin', and Panera Bread that have apps that you can order your food right on your CarPlay. Should you be really doing that? I think that's a little taking away from your attention to the road.
That's what your passenger is for.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, there's a slew of music apps that are out there, including VLC, which I find to be interesting. You can use VLC as the app that's already on the iPhone, that you can play music doing that. And then number of navigation apps, a whole long list of those. So it's interesting to see some of those apps, including the popular ones like Google Maps, Waze, and of course Apple Maps is already built into it. Even Porsche has its own navigation system if you happen to own a Porsche. The news apps and sports, all the big ones and all the sports are there. Odyssey and CBS are very popular, being able to listen to stations around the country using that, as well as all the major sports as well. And then, of course, podcasts. There's a good long list of podcast apps, including I use Pocket Casts all the time on CarPlay. I find it to be really well written and works really well on there. So it's good to see some of these things. Do you guys use any of these apps in your CarPlay, for those who do have CarPlay?
Yeah. So Overcast for me.
See, stuff like this makes me want to just hop onto the Crutchfield website and order a CarPlay head for my Prius.
Yeah, do it, Jeff.
You're missing out, Jeff. You are missing out.
Every time I'm in a car that has CarPlay, I'm like, I really need to get this. But yes, I also know what's going to be involved in me installing it. And yeah. I mean, I will do it one of these days.
I have the tools, Jeff. Come on over.
That's very tempting, actually.
I want a video of that. I want to see this in action.
I think we're going to have to do a podcast episode just on that alone.
I want to play-by-play on this one.
Oh, you have no idea what it took to get CarPlay into my Hyundai.
I've watched videos on installing CarPlay in my Prius, and I mean, if anyone wants to see what's involved, 2013 Prius, it's like you're disassembling the entire inside of your car, and
pretty much,
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Dave. Jeff, though, this seems to be a trend with so many of the auto manufacturers that if you're going to put a third-party head unit in of any kind, it's you need to go to somebody that does it professionally, because they have the tools and the experience, and by the way, the insurance to actually do it.
Frying your electrical system.
Well, frying the electrical system, or hooking something up completely incorrectly that breaks something else. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not like it used to be by any means.
No, it's not. And while people can say, well, they're just going to screw me over by making it more difficult. Well, yeah, but also no, because these head units that we have in cars now, they're part of a car-wide computer system. Yeah. So it's not just I want a new radio. It's I'm replacing one of the core computers in my car. And it's a computer that lets me interface with core functionality of my vehicle. So I mean, it's a thing. It's a process.
Yeah. So don't go to Joe's car stereo, that just opened up 2 weeks ago.
Right. Unless Joe was the primo guy from the other place that did the best work, and he just left because, screw those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
You're also, the other thing you're starting to see too is you're seeing a lot more of the manufacturers that make these third-party external devices that you don't even have to mess with your head unit. Yeah, and it's got the screen you can mount on your dash and hook them up through the system that way with your existing connections. I don't know how great those are and what kind of great experience they are. Of course, your vehicle has to have the external audio connections and electrical to get them to work. I really haven't paid much attention to those other than seeing people selling them. And but nothing beats to have actual head unit that's dedicated to what CarPlay can do for you.
You have to wonder. I mean, the ODB ports came into fashion, and I have to wonder if is there a compelling reason not to put something like that in for connecting an external or a secondary audio visual device. I mean, I'm not going to buy, as much as I might like to, I'm not going to buy a new car just to get a new head unit, but at the same time, it's a factor. It's a factor if I'm shopping.
It is. And that, Chuck, well, it pretty much comes down to the same reason GM is getting rid of CarPlay. The car makers want complete control over that vehicle. If you're going to have CarPlay, it's going to be on their terms. And once you get past about 2010 or so, if your vehicle doesn't already have CarPlay, it's going to be very difficult to add it.
They could probably lock it out. Who knows what GM's going to do with the newer cars that you could even do with a third-party head unit. So, all right, one last thing I wanted to talk about real quick here is this. I found this interesting because it is so ridiculous. Is the fact that this is article in Tech Hive. I love that. Love the title here. For the love of all that's holy, no more micro USB ports on media streamers. It's Amazon and Roku both are stuck in the past when it comes to this. It is the most crazy thing in the world. The micro USB is a 13-year-old technology, and why are they continuing to use when USB-C is so much better, so much faster? And 2023, we're in 2023 now, folks, and this is something I don't understand. I mean, even Apple has switched. So, I mean, why is this? So you got Amazon with the Fire Stick, and you got Roku with their Roku devices. Are all you still using micro USB to connecting your device to external accessories and Ethernet cables and storage drives and wireless controllers? And I mean, it's just it doesn't make any absolute sense. Do you have any thoughts on this, Jeff? Why this is?
I can tell you exactly why. It's money. Cents. Yeah, cents, as in CENTS. Yeah, the cost of micro USB, because it's such an old technology at this point, relatively speaking, the components are practically a rounding error in the cost of the product.
Yeah.
And switching to USB-C is compared to what they're paying now, a significant increase in the bill of materials. So this is all about money. That's it.
Well, it just, they need to do something. Get over it. Maybe add a few extra dollars in USB-Cs. Been around for a while now, and we just got to do something. You guys have any other thoughts on this?
There's absolutely nothing I can add.
Okay. Well,
I take that as high praise, Ben.
yeah.
And the only thing I would add is Jeff is right. It's sense, but it's also momentum.
Yeah. They want to get as many of these devices in people's hands as they can, and keeping the cost down. People say they don't want to spend the money on Apple TV because it's a higher priced device. It's a much better quality device, and all. I think all of our opinions here. But there's plenty of people out there who just want a simple device that doesn't cost them $30 or $30 or $40, whatever it is, to get your streaming. Since a lot of cord cutting is happening these days with the advent of the way the cable companies are as these days. But yeah, I agree. They want to keep the cost down.
I don't know. Somebody enlighten me. But if you're talking about like a Fire Stick to make it USB-C, then that means it would have to have a USB-C port in the TV to plug into.
No,
it's the other end of it that would get
for
the
charging
adapter or for charging.
Oh, the charging
on
part.
one end, it's HDMI.
power.
Or
Yeah, it's always going to have HDMI.
That's right.
And then on the
I'm
other
sorry.
end,
It plugs into the HDMI. Pardon me. You're right.
The power cord is what it is. And we all know how much of a pain in the butt it is to get a micro USB cable connector in these devices. And if you do it, you only can do it in one direction. And
it takes 7 tries.
And 7 tries to line it right up. And crazy stuff here. So good way to wrap this up for this week. Thank you all for being here, and hope you had a good time. We did, because it was a lot of fun here doing this show. So that's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Mastadon, which is at intouchwithios at techhangout.social. Support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We'd really appreciate it. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We would really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and so you're notified when we are live streaming. Usually it's on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, but today we recorded on Friday afternoon. But this is on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/intouchwithios, where you can watch the live and the past live streams, as well as you can listen to past shows. Visit In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, for many of the articles that we discuss are flipped into the magazine. The link is in our show notes. Please, you can also subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher, which includes Pocket Casts, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, many others. But better yet, just go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Mastodon at DaveG65 at mastodon.cloud. Chuck Joyner, thank you as always for being here. Where can people find you?
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me. It was definitely the highlight of my afternoon, because there was a low light earlier. You can find me at macvoices.com. That's where we talk to all kind of people about all kind of things. There's some great, very super useful interviews coming up next week. And I'm going to leave it there, but so trust me, you want to check it out. youtube.com/MacVoicesTV is where we do the live show every Tuesday nights with all 3 of these gentlemen and more of our friends at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time it is, wherever you are. We'd love to have you join us in the chat room and discuss things and throw insults and all kind of other things at us. I don't know what Dave's doing. And on all the socials, you can find me as at Chuck Joyner. I think he was giving me a thumbs up on Mac Voices TV. Good.
I was. Yes. Thanks, Chuck. Ben Roethig, thank you for being here as always. So where can people find you?
Well, Dave, you can find me at Ben Roethig on your social media of choice. Roethig.tech for my website. On Tuesdays, you can find me on Mac Voices with that Chuck Joyner guy. I don't know. You might have heard of him. On Thursday and Fridays, you can find me on the British Tech Network with Jeff Gamet. And every Thursday night, you can find me here on In Touch with iOS, except for those days we do it on Friday.
Thank you, Ben. last but certainly not least, Jeff Gamet, thank you as always for being here. Where can people find you?
How about on social media? Jay Gamet on everything, but I'm active right now mostly on Mastadon and Instagram. All right, then shows. Most Tuesdays on Chuck's Mac Voices Live. Then most Thursdays on Dave, your show, In Touch with iOS, except here we are on Friday. I feel like I'm channeling my inner Ben. Then Thursdays for the Big Show on the British Tech Network. Then Fridays for the Mac Show on British Tech Network as well. And then Brian Chaffin and I record The Context Machine, and this week's episode is already out.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show because we enjoyed doing it. And we'll talk again soon.